Back here on CBS Sports HQ, here is a look at the South region. And how beautiful is that? I love a clean bracket. And, man, that is clean. Here with Matt Norlander, Tim Doyle, Joe Musso. And, Matt, your initial thoughts here. Alabama, the #1 overall seed in the South.
This is an interesting region here. So up top, I don't see a lot of resistance, frankly. I mean, we'll see. Bob Huggins is a Hall of Famer there. The Sweet 16 is where maybe it gets interesting if Virginia were to get there. But that 5-12, immediate trendy 12/5 pick. Immediately, okay? Charleston is a three-point shooting team that loves to run offensive base. San Diego State among the more reliable defensive units in the country. That will be a chic 12/5. We'll see on that. Furman, by the way, really, really good 13. Fascinating 4-13 there on the bottom half. NC State not going to Dayton in safely against Creighton. I love that matchup for Creighton. Baylor, UCSB. Gauchos have some ability, have some talent, but Baylor, that's a good matchup for them. Utah State not going to Dayton, as it should be, on the 10 line, safely in the field, and that's a very fun matchup against a Missouri team that loves to run, can shoot and score really well. Arizona, Princeton, guys, I don't know what that's giving me like 90s vibes. There's something about that game. It's a good matchup for Arizona. They might have gotten a little bit of a gift with that 15 overall, but this is an intriguing region. Alabama doesn't exactly have a cakewalk, but I don't think it's quite as challenging as I might have anticipated on the whole for the #1 overall seed.
Yeah, I'm fascinated to see because Arizona's strength, at least against UCLA, was dominating on the inside, right, with Tabellis and Bala. If they go up against the inside of Alabama, now you got kind of two of the best front lines in college basketball. A game that stood out to me is if San Diego State wins, and I actually liked them in that game because defensively they match up well. They do everything that Charleston doesn't do in their physicality. I liked them in that game. I would not go at 12/5. But if they play Virginia, San Diego State plays Virginia, first one to 40. They just go, hey, you actually scored 40 points in this game. Those are two styles that mirror each other, and both these teams have a culture. They have a style of play. I like San Diego State. I think this is actually his deepest team. Maybe not his most talented team, but you see if Virginia wins and San Diego State wins, that is going to be an absolute barn burner. Baylor's got guards that have been around the block. I like that. That's a scary recipe. Baylor's guards against Arizona's guards. That's advantage Baylor in that game if it gets to that point. But, yes, the class is obviously the #1 seed.
Hakeem, the last 4 SEC teams to be #1 overall, the top seed. They've made the Final Four, 2 of them winning it. And there we are, the top overall seed, Alabama, taking on whoever it may be between Corpus Christi and Southeast Missouri State.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is not going to be UMBC over Virginia in 2018. Alabama's going to cakewalk, and then it's going to be Maryland and West Virginia, and they're not playing this game in College Park. No. So give me West Virginia.
You know what? We'll see on that. That is a classic 8-9.
It is.
First of all, I'm gonna make a pick on HQ in a little bit. I'm gonna overthink and change my mind 7 times before this game tips off later this week. Just letting you know.
Tim, you take a look at that 8-9 right there. Not a whole lot between them, obviously, in terms of seeding. You've seen plenty of Maryland this year. Do they have what it takes to advance and then maybe give Alabama a little bit of a problem?
They've had some great wins this year. West Virginia, it seems like they were outstanding at home, but as the season grew, their confidence grew on the road. They were actually playing a little bit better on the road. I like their physicality a little bit more. This is tough for me. I'm a Big Ten guy. I think the Big Ten is suspect. I'm going to be targeting them in games like this that are 50-50 jump ball type of games because it was a league where Purdue was the clear-cut favorite. We've seen what they've done in the tournament as of late, even with the gift of last year with St. Peter's being in front of them, ended up knocking them off. I like West Virginia in that spot. I just think they're a little bit tougher than the Terrapins.
All right, let's take a look at the CBS Sports Network matchup. The conference Colonial Athletic Association matchup against San Diego State in the Mountain West, right? They're featured a lot on CBS Sports Network. Yeah. We see a lot of these teams. Charleston, 31 wins. San Diego State, another conference championship. Brian Dutcher, did they get out of the first round? The last Mountain West team to win was 2018 was Nevada.
We talk about how the Mountain West has got a huge tournament ahead of itself here. This is a game you got to win, but Charleston, legit team. Can get it done. This is a 12/5 that can happen. This is so tasty. Both of these can happen, actually. Charleston over San Diego State, and then Furman over Virginia. Now, Virginia is not vintage Virginia. In fact, there have been many examples this season that would indicate that Virginia could be vulnerable in a game like this, similar to a couple years ago. Remember when Virginia played in the bubble tournament, got Ohio, got picked off right away? Would not stun me. Furman's got 2 high major players. Jalen Slauson, Mike Bothwell can both get it done. UVA, we will see. Reese Beekman's one of the best defenders in the sport. They've got Kihei Clark still on the team. He was the point guard on the national championship team. So that is, we might see a 5-12, 4-13 back-to-back that's better in this bracket than that, but I am loving that one right now.
Tim, we sat here a day ago with one eyebrow raised at UVA. They only really have one way of winning it, and that's stopping you. If they get behind, they can't really score with other teams. But when you talk about Furman, 0-2 against teams in the top 100 in the net this season, that was a loss to Penn State and a loss to NC State. Is there a world within UC Furman pulling off this upset against a slow, plodding Virginia team?
No, you know what Furman can do? They could score. So a team that can make threes and spread the floor is a dangerous team. Now, Virginia, they build their defense to play harder in the last 5 seconds of the shot clock than they did the first 25 seconds of the shot clock. So you go into this game with Furman, talked about Bothwell and Slauson, four total players averaging double figures. Here's what you got to do. You make 10 plus threes.
Yeah.
They could easily win that game. I just love San Diego State this particular year. I think this is actually a bad matchup for Charleston because they guard you. It's almost impossible, Matt, in 4 days leading up to simulate what San Diego State does. I think Virginia's more likely to get upset than San Diego State.
You know what? I just want to real quick. What Tim's saying here is on the money. Charleston's going to be a trendy pick, but everything he just told you is correct. And there is a scenario in which we're talking about that game, and San Diego State has beaten Charleston by 14 points and just suffocated them. The real team there, so keep that in mind. As tempted as we are to pick these upsets, and I encourage it, sometimes the most obvious ones end up being the ones that wind up duping us. So SDSU, very motivated and capable of making the second weekend.
So you're saying that Charleston's not this year's St. Peter's?
I just think they got a bad matchup.
Yeah. You're right, and you have been saying that all along. It comes down to matchup because if Virginia gets into a matchup where they can't keep up and running up down the floor.
If Charleston played Indiana,
yeah,
I like that matchup better. They don't have the same physicality, but with San Diego State, when you see them live, you're like, how is anybody going to score against this team?
Yeah.
And what Charleston does is a lot what Utah State does. And you know what San Diego State did to Utah State every time they played them? They beat them, and they beat them the same way. They beat them up, and they out-physical them, and they took away their three-point shooters. So it's just a bad matchup. It's unfortunate because Pat Kelsey's done a great job there. This is a team that had intrigued. I don't like this matchup.
All right, let's take a look at the 11-6 matchup in the South. 11 seeds 26 and 22 in the round of 64 since 2010, and it's Creighton and NC State. And this, to me, doesn't feel like a typical 11-6 matchup, Matt.
Well, I got to be honest. Creighton here, this is some of these games I agonize over in a loving way. I will not agonize over this. This is a Creighton
right.
win. This is an auto
I don't
win.
see NC State winning this. Move on.
I do not. If NC State would have been sent to Dayton, I wouldn't have objected to it. NC State's got a great one, too. You know, Jarkel Joyner, Jaquavian Smith, both putting up more than 17 a game. DJ Burns, you're going to love watching him play. But Creighton, it has NC State outclassed here. I don't expect a lot of drama from these two games here Friday in Denver, personally.
Last time NC State stepped on the floor, they got absolutely embarrassed by Clemson. And, had some quality wins at home. Creighton, their biggest thing is health, right? When Ryan Kalkbrenner is out on the floor, the 7-footer, he's first-team All-League player, he changes the entire complexion of this team. They were a sleeper, I had them marked as a potential Final Four run type of squad. And that's not saying much because, Matt, you remember they were ranked in the top 10 this year. But this bracket, I think, is a little bit too much. They're in a bad bracket. I don't know how they can overcome the Baylors, the Arizonas, the Alabamas. This is I had them trying to go far before the brackets came out. This is a bad bracket for them.
Waiting one game beyond is either Santa Barbara or more likely Baylor, TD. Baylor a year ago was part of UNC's unlikely run to that national title game, so some unfinished business. This was not the Bears team that we have seen in years past, but you're looking for continuity, you're looking for coaching, and you likely find it there with Baylor.
Matt, I want you going to Santa Barbara because I have not really dove into them that much, but I've seen Baylor, and what I like about Baylor, I trust about Baylor. Flagler, Cryer, guys have been around the block. This is what wins this time of year. They've had great wins. I saw them gut-out wins, especially the one at TCU where they really were not at their best, but they figured out a way. Yeah, they may not have that superstar on superstar as they've had in the years past, and they won national championship, but they're tough, they're steady. I don't know what Santa Barbara going to have to do.
Santa Barbara's got 3 guys who shoot between 38 and 41% from 3. A.J. Mitchell's a good player. This is a Santa Barbara team, a Gauchos team that can probably maybe try and run with Baylor. Just feels like Baylor, which has been suspect defensively, I don't know if Baylor's going to get too much of a push from the Gauchos in this spot. Scott Drew's team has been wobbly down the stretch a little bit here, got beat by Iowa State twice. So we'll wait and see on that, but that doesn't seem like a particular 14-3 that seems all that vulnerable.
All right, let's take a look at the bottom pod here in the South region, featuring Missouri and Utah State. You got Ryan Odom, who was leading UMBC in 2018 over Virginia. Matt said Utah State would not be among the first 4. They are not. They're going to match up against Dennis Gates in his first season at Missouri. They got Demoy Hodge. That team generates turnovers after turnover. Missouri could be one of these dark horses. Just looking at the bracket, just seeing the South right now.
It's possible. So there is a scenario in which, first of all, Utah State coached by Ryan Odom.
Yep.
Previously at UMBC, knows the thing about an upset or two.
Yep.
It wouldn't be there. It would be in the second round over Arizona. Just keep that in mind. But we could have a very entertaining Missouri-Arizona. You're going to want to see that. But Utah State's good. And how about this? One of the most under-discussed, and we're not going to under-discuss it here because I'm going to mention it right now. Utah State ranks top 20 at KenPom, one of the 20 best teams in the sport, okay? So don't sleep on the Aggies. There was a lot of curiosity over whether they'd be sent to Dayton. I told you before we started the selection show, this team should be comfortably on the 10 line. That's exactly what the committee did. That, I think, has the potential to be the best, most entertaining game, 7-10 matchup. Both teams shoot well, shoot it from deep, are efficient. That's a lot of fun. I expect Arizona to beat Princeton, and then no matter the opponent there, Arizona's going to have its hands full in the second round.
I think this is a bad matchup for Missouri. What Missouri does is they turn people over. Turned over Alabama 17 times. Turned over Tennessee 14 times. You know what Utah State doesn't do? And they've seen San Diego State pressure. They don't turn it over. And when I went and covered their games, I had Utah State twice this year. Their biggest concern is their finesse teams, they don't rebound particularly well. And that's actually Missouri. That's not their strength either. They're not a great rebounding team. So they rely on their defensive pressure to take Utah State or other teams out of their rhythm. Stephen Ashworth is hilarious. He looks like Michael J. Fox in like Teen Wolf, but he's not the wolf. He's the actual player. He's like 5'9". He can really stick it. Funk is a guy who could shoot the 3. They play extremely well together. They're battle tested. They gave San Diego State all they could handle, but that was a bad matchup for them. This is an excellent matchup for them. Give me Utah State.
Quick thought on the other side of that one, Arizona-Princeton. Princeton in the field of 64 for the first time since 2017. And I think you want to take a little credit for that for a second here, TD, huh?
Yeah, Princeton's freshman sensation, Cade Pierce, is my next-door neighbor, yes. And I mentored him. Is that a scary thought? That I'm mentoring kids, Norlander? Yes.
They won a state championship.
I put him under my wing, and I said, all right, kids, time to go to college. Uncle Timmy's going to give you a little talking to. Their best player, Tosan Naroma, is a big guy who plays a little bit like Giannis, and they use him out front. They don't play the old-school Princeton way where everyone's cutting back door, but it's going to be interesting to get Bala out on the perimeter, get Tubelis out on the perimeter. I'm interested to see the line in this game. Okay. If Princeton's getting like 12, I like Princeton. If this thing's in single digits, I maybe not like them as much. Princeton's smart. Arizona, that's the one thing they're not. They're really talented. They're really long. They lack some things up here. This is going to be a close game, but I think Arizona wins.
We are going to get to the tutelage of one Tim Doyle in the not too distant future, but next we take it to the Midwest. Coming up, we'll take a look at the region, 1 seeds and beyond. It's all coming your way. Selection Sunday, right here on CBS Sports HQ. Back on CBS Sports HQ, Selection Sunday extravaganza as we turn our focus to the Midwest region, where Houston is your 1 seed. Texas, we were thinking might have ended on a 1 line. Instead, they are the 2 in the Midwest, but we start there with 1 versus 16. It'll be the Horizon League champions, Northern Kentucky, taking on Houston, Matt Norlander. I don't think this is where we get the 1/16, but Houston's goal of ultimately cutting down the nets in Houston begins there with that 16 seed.
Begins there, and this is Houston that would go to Kansas City, not Kansas. Let's look at this bracket here. Okay, Houston, we'll have them moving on, no doubt about it. Iowa versus Auburn. Bruce Pearl versus Iowa. There is a history. Google it, folks. That feels like an Iowa win. We'll see about that. Fran McCaffrey versus Bruce Pearl. We love it. Miami versus Drake. What? Drake's got a player. Tucker DeVries. Plays for his father, Darren DeVries. Is a high major player. Miami is legit. Miami is good enough to get out of the top half of this bracket and upset of Houston. We'll wait and see on that. And then subplots galore here. Indiana against Kent State. I feel like Tim Doyle is going to pick that as an upset before we get out of here tonight. I'll tell you this, Kent State is legit, coached by Rob Senderoff, a former Kelvin Sampson assistant at Indiana way back when making phone calls was against the rules in the NCAA. And then Senderoff wound up getting a significant sanction there. He has thrived at Kent State. That's a wonderful matchup. Iowa State, okay, then we see here, Pitt, it's in. Mississippi State, it's in. They're going to Dayton. Both of those teams are vulnerable. I agree with that decision. Iowa State on the 6th line. They've got a good top half of the resume, but they've had such contradictory things throughout the entire season. Iowa State, Mississippi State, if that is the matchup we get on Friday, avert your eyes. First one to, not 50, 40 wins that one. I talked with Sean Miller on Saturday night after the Big East tournament. He was convinced they were going to be a 4. Sean, you're on the 3 line. The bad news is you're playing a Kennesaw State team that is about as infectiously fun and dangerous as anyone will see on the 14 line. And it's going to be in Greensboro, Kennesaw State, based in Atlanta. Short drive for that program's first NCAA bid ever there. Just a wonderful, wonderful bracket that we have here. I cannot wait. This is such a tasty, tasty region with a lot of good storylines up and down.
I have 3 children, but if I could adopt a 4th, well, it used to be John Morant. Now we're not sure if we want to bring him into John Morant Doyle. Kent State Doyle, okay? I was waiting for the matchup.
My hometown. Okay? Let's establish that. That's my hometown.
This is a
Ohio.
team. They get San Diego State, bad matchup. They get Indiana. Very good matchup. And if we jump into that bracket a little bit further, you mentioned about Rob Senderoff and Kelvin Sampson. Interesting enough, these 2 teams played in November. Kent State took the payday. They went down to Houston, and they were beating the Cougars with 1 minute left in the game. Houston went on a 6-0 run, and I thought the Zebras, the referees, were a difference in that game. I love Drake. You talked about Tucker DeVries. If you have not seen him play, he's like if Dirk Nowitzki and Luka Doncic had like a love child. Like it would be Tucker DeVries. He plays with that same sort of gait. He posts up. He can shoot from deep. Isaiah Wong's a great story from Miami. One thing about Miami is like they've been there before, and it seems like when the tournament comes on, that's when the biggest lights come on. But Kent State, that is, where's my hammer at? I am going to be hammering the golden flashes in that game. There's only one person on this desk that is in a Hall of Fame in Kent, Ohio. It's actually not me.
It's true. Kent City Schools Hall of Famer. What can I say? let me hit you with the Michael Jordan gif right there with the
legends. They live amongst us.
What can I say?
I want to focus in on Miami and Drake here for a moment because Miami 0-4 ATS their last 4 times out. So maybe not living up to the expectation that those who know what they're talking about are setting upon them. Drake, on the other hand, 8-1 ATS their last 9 times out. Does that trend off the number, TD, do anything for you here? When we are looking at, again, it is low-hanging fruit, but a 5-12 matchup as we try and size up these 2 sides. Is this a 5 right for that upset?
I believe so. And Norlander knows this much better than me. The Valley, Matt, every year. You want to start going in years past? You want to go check out Loyola, Chicago? You want to check out Northern Iowa? Just go down the Valley. Wichita State, Creighton, when they were in there. Every single year, whoever represents the Valley, they go out there and win. So I'm actually going to be picking Drake just because I'm going to be leaning on that conference. That's always a 1-bid conference and should be more than 1 bid. They had multiple teams this year that I thought were really talented, and the fact that you have an NBA player being coached by his father, I'm picking Drake there as an upset.
A win over Mississippi State this year as well on that resume for Drake, emboldening them maybe in their one real experience against a big-name school this season.
Yeah, no doubt about it. This is. Can we get that bracket? Can we get the region up again here? Because I want to just give our audience a little bit more what we're looking at on this part of the bracket. Because there's a ton of fun here. Drake. I'll tell you what, Drake can make the Sweet 16. Miami can, Indiana can, Kent State can. Can't really see Iowa or Auburn doing it. Iowa State, Mississippi State can do it because how they play, almost like Iowa State a year ago. Keep an eye on that. Xavier can do it. A&M as a 7. All right, I want to talk on this real quick. The reason why Texas A&M is a 7, and I do not disagree with this, there is only one governing body that holds head coaches accountable for how they schedule in the non-conference, and it's the selection committee. Now, it is not an explicit thing, but messages are sent. Buzz Williams did not schedule well in November and December, so though Texas A&M finished second in the SEC and played well, I actually think this is a relatively fair seed, and now it's going to get, you know what you got here is two teams that have been playing really, really hot. Penn State, it just nabbed 6 quad 1 wins in the past month or so. It didn't quite get enough. What we see here is they did not get the benefit of taking Purdue down to the wire. Penn State on the 10 line. That's a really, really good. You've got Wade Taylor IV against Jalen Pickett in the backcourt. One of the best guard-on-guard matchups we will get in the entire first round.
All right, from the Midwest to the West, we'll break down the West region, where Kansas is the #1 seed. Perhaps a run through Las Vegas back to the national championship. That's next here on CBS Sports HQ. Go West, young man. The defending national champs, Kansas, the #1 seed out of the West. Perhaps a trip to Las Vegas and then ultimately to Houston for the Final Four. Tough to run it back. Last team to win back-to-back national champs, Florida in 06-07. Man, those teams were good. And we'll see if Kansas is good enough to repeat again. They take on Howard out of the MEAC. Any problems, do you think, for Kansas? They're going to have Bill Self back on the sideline. And then we got the at-large special there, the 8-9 matchup, Arkansas, Illinois, who Joe, not even making a joke, said, I feel like we get that every year. It kind of feels like we do.
Yeah, I mean, Illinois is one of those teams. If good Illinois shows up, look out. I mean, they could be a handful for anybody, including Kansas. VCU looked outstanding, got great guard play. St. Mary's, Randy Bennett, I think always is up for Coach of the Year. They went out there and won the WCC. But the Iona College Gales, they used to be, now they're the Iona University Gales. Rick Pitino, rumored to be going to St. John's, but still on the sideline for the Gales. I like this matchup, and it's in New York. Oh, the Gale fans, Gale Nation is going to be out. That is a trendy ATS pick for me. I'm not sure they could win, but if I'm going to get like 6 or 7, I'm going to take the dog.
Okay, this region is outrageous. Arkansas, Illinois is the most unpredictable 8-9 I've seen in years. Cannot wait to get to it. Either team could win or lose by 25. Awesome, 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 awesome matchup. How about St. Mary's flying across the country? I will be in Albany for CBSSports.com and HQ on Friday, flying across the country to face a VCU team that just is in this neck of the woods. Dangerous matchup, defensive first matchup there. And then I cannot wait. Are you kidding me? We are getting Dan Hurley against Rick Pitino. Pitino is almost definitely going to be coaching against Dan Hurley in the Big East next year. And Iona just driving up the Taconic Parkway. UConn scooting on over, going through Avon, across Connecticut. That is a wonderful, wonderful Albany matchup. Usually when you get a team that's that low, your 12s, your 13s, your 14s, they don't get that much of a geographic nod. We've seen that a couple times in this bracket. Auburn is going to get to play close even though it doesn't have a great seed. This region, just matchup storylines galore. This is my favorite one so far.
Keep an eye out in Albany, as we do know Guster is for lovers. If you know, you know.
It's coming. That's right.
You will know soon here with our guy, Matt Norlander. I want to go to the bottom side of this region because there's a couple cats, some purple pride on this side of the desk right now. Northwestern, UCLA, Gonzaga, all those teams on the bottom half of what we're looking at. And, I mean, here it is. TCU going to get the Arizona State, Nevada play-in winner, and we know the success that those play-in games have sort of trampoline teams too. But names like the Zags, Northwestern, who can be pesky if they can get by Boise State, UCLA, we didn't know if they were going to be on a 2 or a 3 line. They get the 2 line, and for that, could be an early meeting with the Zags, Matt. When we do go to the bottom of this region, it's going to be hard to get out of those 8.
Look at this. Okay, I'll be quick on this. TCU has tremendous spurt ability. Mike Miles is your must-watch player in the bottom half of this region. Arizona State, Nevada, they get in. 2 teams that weren't sure if they were going to get in. That is a ideal 11 matchup right there. Gonzaga, as we told you before the selection show, 3 seed to the west. Grand Canyon, small little plot line. Tommy Lloyd's son, obviously formerly at Gonzaga, plays at Grand Canyon. Keep an eye on that. Northwestern, Boise State. Northwestern's in the tournament for the second time ever. Leon Rice. There's all sorts of Leon Rice, by the way, a former Gonzaga assistant. There's a lot of Gonzaga ties here. And then you've got UCLA, UNC Asheville. UNC Asheville is led by a dude that has heavy Bill Walton vibes. Drew Pember, former Tennessee commit, as the Big South Player of the Year. There's all sorts of stuff. Now, we could get Gonzaga, UCLA in the Sweet 16 in the West. We've seen that before, Crying Morrison back in 06. This is one heck of a region with a lot of really, really tasty, really good first-round matchups. Cannot wait to get this one going. This is awesome.
Everybody's going to have UCLA and Gonzaga. Everybody's going to. I'll tell you this right now, and I will guarantee this: they don't play each other. Because TCU last year should have knocked off Arizona. They've been battle-tested. Go ahead.
But no Eddie Lampkin. He's not with the team, and Lampkin was the guy who was so big in that. So just keep that in mind on TCU.
Yeah, TCU, Michael Miles has to be a difference maker. I just think everyone who fills out their bracket, if you want to win your bracket, you have to kind of think a little bit outside the box. Northwestern, I like this matchup. Chase Audige, Boo Buie. They got experienced guards. They play excellent defense. That's going to be a dogfight that nothing's easy with Northwestern, but I could see their defense clamping down on Boise. And then I see Northwestern UCLA. And I think UCLA would probably be 4.5 in that game. And I think that's a game that's going to be really competitive because what we saw last night from UCLA is offensively they stand around a lot, and then it's Tiger Camley and Jaquez going one-on-one. And I think Northwestern can be very competitive in that game. I think they could beat UCLA on a given night. So Gonzaga, UCLA, everybody wants to see it, but I don't think it's going to happen.
How about the 12-5, VCU and St. Mary's?
Yep.
Because, look, VCU is one of those teams going into Selection Sunday. You go, wow, they could be a Cinderella again, like we've seen them before in 2011, all the way to the Final Four with Shaka Smart. Maybe does Mike Rhodes maybe go down the same road here with VCU?
Yeah, potentially. Bring your hard hat. All right, this is one of the toughest St. Mary's teams, one of the best St. Mary's teams that Randy Bennett has ever coached, and VCU has played. This is per metric data. VCU has played like a top 25 team over the past month in college basketball. So really, that's a top 25 matchup in a 5-12 game. I'm thrilled that I get to see that in person in Albany later this week. That's going to be overlooked when you consider the UConn-Iona stuff, and trust me, that's just phenomenal overall. But that's really, really good. This West region. Up and down, man. Arkansas, Illinois, are you kidding me with that 8-9? One of those classic games where the team you pick, you are convinced will lose no matter what, even if you change your mind. I don't even know on that one, man. That is unbelievable, and the West stands to be a lot of fun. I will say I'm probably going to have Gonzaga, UCLA meeting in the West because those two, Gonzaga's the best offense in the sport. UCLA, though, doesn't have Jalen Clark, has operated really, really well. I think they're on a collision course.
Big ideas. Even bigger games. Hakeem, a final thought here before we get to the East.
We talked about Arkansas Illinois game. That's like the shouting head coach matchup, Brad Underwood and Eric Musselman. That's like the intensity, like the Bruce Pearl shouting matchup. You're going to be hanging on in that game.
They might be red in the face. We might be as well. Matt Norlander, we're going to get him a quick breather, and then we're going to break down the East, taking a look at what's out in front of them, your 1 seed. It's going to be Purdue waiting on the winner of Texas Southern and Fairleigh Dickinson. We break it all down. We're going East next on CBS Sports HQ.
The Big Ten has not won a national championship since 2000, the days of Mateen Cleaves. That was a fun team to watch. Purdue going to look to change that, the 1 seed out of the East, as they will potentially head to New York City. Just played in Chicago, one of the greatest cities in the world, as they won the Big Ten Conference Championship. And look, the Big Ten has 8 teams in the Big Dance. This is a prove-it year for the Big Ten, Matt. And we're going to get Tim, and we're going to get Joe's thoughts on this, too, because they're Big Ten guys just like I am. But this is a big year for Purdue as a 1 seed, a lot of responsibility with that 1 next to their name.
It's a huge year. Look at this. Okay, tell you what, I can't believe it happened. Before we went on the selection show, before we went live, I said a brutal matchup would be Memphis.
Yes, you did.
Memphis.
Yes, you did.
Are you kidding me? And not only that, committee, what are we doing? FAU, 29-3 against D1 opponents. You're putting them on the 9 line. It's disrespectful. At the same time, that's a phenomenal. That is your best 8-9 we have on the board. The East overall is incredible. Duke Roberts, Max Asmus, remember his heroics not so long ago? Going up against a hot Duke team. Tennessee, Louisiana. Tennessee has been stumbling. Doesn't have Zakai Ziegler. Keep an eye on that. Kentucky, Providence. You want a plot line? You want a plot line? Bryce Hopkins left Kentucky because he wasn't happy with his role. He was one of the best transfers in the country. Providence gets in. Bryce Hopkins going to go against his former team. And then on the bottom half, Kansas State, Montana State, intriguing game. Michigan State, USC, Tom Izzo back in the field. You never want to underrate Sparty. And then Marquette, Vermont, Be Still My Heart. That game's got some really, really fun potential out there in Columbus, Ohio. But to me, my eyes drift to Memphis, FAU, and Duke Oral Roberts as the two must-watch matchups in this first round here out east.
Hakeem, you got to be feeling so good about Marquette here. I mean, I can see you. You have a twinkle in your eye right now because of all the twos, this looks like the best two spot.
Looks like a nice path.
Yes, it does.
Looks like a nice path.
Matt did say that. He goes, oh, that would be a bad matchup if Purdue runs into a Memphis.
It's one of the worst matchups they could. Now, we'll see if they get it. And even if they get FAU's for real. I'm telling you, FAU can make a second weekend run. They're a legit team. Didn't mean to cut you off, buddy.
I was throwing it to you. You're an encyclopedia of basketball. Kendrick Davis is a big-time guard. He played against Houston. Memphis knocks off Houston. No Sasser in that game, and he goes off. He didn't actually play in one of the games this year against Houston. Guards give Purdue trouble. I root for Purdue. I'm a Big Ten guy. Matt Painter, I like him. Gene Katie, a personal friend. They in trouble. Duke's interesting at 5. Right? When do you see Duke at a 5? By the way, they're playing great basketball. Their last loss was to Virginia in the no-foul game. And now they've won 9 straight, and their defense has been out of this world. Oral Roberts was a trendy team that everyone's having their eye on. Matt, I think that's a bad matchup for them. Do you agree with that?
I think I think it could potentially be. Oh, my goodness. Yes. But let's not we will see. I think there is a very, very good case to be made. That's exactly what will go down.
I mean, I see this, Purdue, the question marks we have. I almost think Indiana's got a better chance of bringing that streak to an end than Purdue does. Looking at this draw, might be something crazy to say, but we're here to get a little bit crazy.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if Purdue gets by that 8-9 matchup, then they're more than likely going to have either Duke or Tennessee.
Well, this has got to be the hardest
Duke,
path, right?
That's what I'm saying.
This is the hardest path for a 1. I mean, this is ridiculous.
You know what? I gotta completely overthink this thing again many times tonight. But I will say this right now: Purdue looking at either Memphis or FAU, and then Duke, like with the amount of athleticism and size. That's a tough ask.
Yeah, because you're asking. Look, that's a potential Kyle Filipowski against Zach Edey if we get that.
Yes. And Jeremy Roach is a point guard who just made the Final Four last year, going up against those young guards. Purdue's got to swear. I've been big on Purdue all season long, and I'm not going to abandon them. I'm going to have to make my picks on HQ shortly. I have no idea what I'm going to do with Purdue.
Matt Norlander just leaned forward in the chair, so you know he's locked in. We're going to stay locked in here, but we're turning our attention now, guys, to last 4 in, first 4 out. We got to talk about the head scratcher, or the what if you will. I think we're going to take a look at those names right now. Rutgers is the big one here. Everybody had the Big Ten, 9 teams in the field. It is 8 instead, and Rutgers is on the outside looking in. Matt Norlander, how surprised are you as you take stock of these two sides, essentially Arizona State in place of Rutgers?
Not surprised. I put out my projected field before we got there. At least the teams I thought should be in. I had Rutgers out. I had Arizona State and Nevada as the last 2 in. That's exactly what we have here. I think this is a pretty good first 4. You can make the argument Providence is lucky that it's not in this screen and Mississippi State is. And then how about even Rutgers not be? This is the order. Oklahoma State leapfrog Rutgers. That's a Rutgers team that won at Purdue. 4 quad 3 losses did Rutgers in. I don't think there's anything tremendously controversial about any of this. I know Rutgers fans are really going to be chapped on this. Oklahoma State, all you got to do is not lose at home to Southern Illinois a couple months back, and you're in the field. You're not even going to Dayton. You'd be in the field easily, but 15 losses. Only 2 teams in history had ever made the tournament as at-larges with as many as 15 losses, so the overall record came into play there. Oklahoma State just narrowly doesn't get into the field. That's the breaks.
TD, you have a way with fan bases. A word here for Rutgers?
Gym, tan, laundry. You're going to have a lot of that right now as you head to the offseason. I like this Rutgers squad. They had a key injury, and then all of a sudden their team started going in the wrong direction.
There's one thing that popped in my mind as you're doing this. Rutgers, in essence, the Big Ten messed up a call against Ohio State. Remember, Ohio State beat Rutgers. If that's a win, it's in the field. And, you know, Rutgers needed to win games after that, so there's also that to account for. But the injury is right. Rutgers fans, they're not. This is not going to sit well with them. But 4 quad 3 losses, it's tough to overcome.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that's unbelievable is when you see Hakeem, first 4 in, last 4 out. What's unbelievable to you about it?
North Carolina. North Carolina. First preseason team not to make the NCAA tournament.
I think if
since
North
it
Carolina,
expanded.
I think if North Carolina played Nevada in the first round, North Carolina would be 5.5.
But it's not who the better
right.
team is. It's what you did. And North Carolina had opportunities.
Oh, North Carolina had more than enough opportunities, and they spent a whole lot of money to build that team. You check out the most teams to make the NCAA tournament. The Big Ten went 9. Someone's got to be standing at the end of the day because they have not won a national championship in over 20 years. The Big Ten and the Mountain West, in my eyes, the most approved conference-wise in this NCAA tournament.
And this is big for the Mountain West. The second straight year the conference has gotten 4 teams into the dance. Last year went 0-4. Can't have it again. You got to have a Mountain West team or two pick up at least a victory.
Yeah, Nevada, the last team to win for the Mountain West in 2018. And hey, Nevada's in. They're in. They're in. 4 teams from the Mountain West. You love that conference. Come on.
I think somebody else besides Nevada should have got it. But that win over San Diego State got them in.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.